You go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I've always respected older men, so you go ahead and...
No, go ahead. Because you're older than me.
Okay, well, Glenn was on the band, and I was a very, very Johnny-come-lately type musician, and Bob had always been my hero since junior high days. I always dreamed of working for him, and I'm going to try and get this in. But I wasn't a musician. I didn't play anything. So I kept trying to go to work for Bob, and he said, you'll have to learn how to play something. So
because he had a bus driver.
He had a bus driver, and he had a chauffeur. But at that time, believe me, I would have chauffeured him or whatever. But he said, you're eat up with rhythm. He said, get you an instrument, bass or drum, and learn how to play it, and we'll go from there. So I did. Went and bought a set of drums and started playing locally, and worked myself up to a real fine musician in my part of the country, Beaumont, Cliff Bruner. And Cliff kind of got me ready for Bob. He knew what Bob wanted. And I'm just real lucky to be associated with all these guys because, like I said, in junior high and high school, man, I was hearing them and felt like I knew them because Bob called their names on the records all the time. And this guy's been with him 100 years, so way before I ever met him, I felt like I knew him, see? And Bob would let me go off on trips with him, you know, even before I went to work for him. But anyway, I finally, at 30 years old, I started playing drums and ended up on Bob's band with a lot of help because Bob, I would like to say this, Bob always hired the musician second and the man first. And I think that's why you'll find such comradeship between all of these Texas playboys. We have a special feeling for each other because Bob hired good people. If you weren't good people, you didn't stay long on his. I'm a perfect example of that. I'm a pretty good guy. I'm not a very good musician, but I'm a pretty good guy. So he put up with a lot from me. Now, I don't know how this guy, I'll cut it off there. I don't know how I think he went to work for Bob because Tommy Duncan is his brother and was just as famous as Bob. And so I think really Bob liked me, and I don't know how he got on the band. I'll let him explain.
Well, Bob didn't hire me. Bob didn't hire me. Luke hired me.
Oh, Luke.
Yeah.
Well, you're second hand. You're second hand right off the bat.
That's right. But no, Luke called me and hired me.
Okay.
So they said, "You want to go to work for Bob?" I said, "Well, I'll have to see if I can get off my job." I was driving truck at the time. And he said, "Well, if you can, meet us in Houston tomorrow night at Cook's Hoedown." So I was there. And that's about it. From there on, I just worked. There was no big deal, no wild stories or anything to tell. It was just wasn't a long-term thing, but it was one of the most enjoyable jobs I ever had in my life. Money couldn't buy the experience and everything that I got while I was working for Bob. And it was just something about the man that was magic. I don't care. You didn't have to be a good musician to work for Bob.
Amen.
Because if you could play anything at all or do anything, the man could get it out of you without any problem at all. Because there's something about him. It was magic. You just wanted to do your best and play your heart out for him. And I think he's one of the greatest band leaders that have ever come along. And I wouldn't take anything for the time that I spent with him.
I want to say this. I was there that night this guy showed up. You remember that?
Yeah, he was.
Bob introduced me to him and said, "I think you're going to like our new singer." And he was scared to death. He'd grabbed that microphone was just like that. Now, don't let him tell you he wasn't. But I'll bet you there's not a playboy living that will tell you the first week or so on Bob's band, they were nervous.
I'll tell you what, if a guy tells you that he wasn't nervous the first week or two that he worked for Bob Wills, he's lying.
Not because of Bob himself.
He's not real. And that goes for most any new job, as far as I'm concerned, in playing professionally. I don't care how good you are or how bad you are or how good or how bad the musicians you're working with. If you're not nervous, you're not human. That's about all I got to say.
And it was not because of Bob, it was because of the tradition. I knew people that took, Billy Bowman's place. Gene Crownover was a good friend of mine. He was scared to death for a year or two, and he even tried to play like Billy because he knew Bob liked Billy so well. Bob finally told him, he said, "Hey, Billy's gone. Play like Gene Crownover." That's the kind of guy he was.
Let me ask you one question. Will you tell me a little bit about the relationship between Bob and Tommy? And were they good friends? Was there a rivalry? I'm not trying to get into anything.
No, they had all the respect in the world for each other. They were just like brothers. In fact, the business, they was closer than brothers, as far as I'm concerned. There was no, there was no hard feelings, even though they busted up and everything. There was no hard feelings whatsoever.